Welcome to episode 29 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary, with Kristen
and Catherine, where we believe there is nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Catherine. So today we're gonna I'm not gonna say veer off of our intro topic of like books and stuff like that, but we're actually gonna tackle tattoos today. Because both of us have several fandom slash like book, TV show, whatever, based tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just gonna talk about them today, because who doesn't like a good tattoo?
True. So I'm going to be a bit loose with the term fandom since I surprisingly don't have any book related tattoos yet. But we did discuss it a bit last week that we both have tattoos for Supernatural, and we actually got those together because we cute as fuck.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah. Also, back to last week, kind of. I have a pineapple tattoo for the show Psych. And
so good. So good.
That's how much I love it.
But it's also like, it's so unassuming. Like the pineapple, like it's not something you would immediately like, oh, you have a pineapple because you like Psych. It's like, no, you can have a pineapple for a million different reasons. And if you have not watched the show, you should. If you have watched the show, you know that there is an Easter egg in that every single episode of the show Psych has a pineapple in it somewhere. Sometimes more hidden than others, but they always put a pineapple in there. So it's very smart on your part.
Yeah, it is super cute. But I did find out later on that apparently an upside down pineapple is a symbol for swingers. Luckily, my pineapple is not upside down, but if I put my hand up, my pineapple is upside down. So I keep that hand firmly down.
That's not something I was aware of.
Yeah, so just a heads up. That's apparently a thing. Anyway.
Great.
I also have 3 band related tattoos. So I have lyrics from a Matthew Good Band song and lyrics from the band Moist. Sorry guys. They're a 90s band that I'm in love with.
Yeah, I remember because we went to go see them together. We went to a concert. We traveled on an airplane and stayed in a hotel in the 2000s, like the 2010s, in fact.
Yes. They got back together for a short period of time, and I was like, need to go.
So
now.
We went. We did. They were not popular anymore.
No, they weren't. It was very empty, but we were there.
It was very, although it was good though.
Oh, it was really good. I made my life. It's fine. Yeah, I think I got the tattoo afterwards, so it's not like it ruined them for me or anything. But their name is legitimately Moist, and it's not great.
It's a terrible word. David Usher, for those of you that like, he also had a solo career. So
yes, yeah. I do have another band tattoo, but I actually just remembered I do have a book-related tattoo that I completely forgot about. But anyway, the other band is a band called Bad Flower. I have a flower for them.
That's nice. Is it a bad flower?
It is a bad flower.
Or is it a good flower?
It's a bad flower. No, that's the wrong. Oh no, it's right there. It's a black daisy, so it's the opposite of what it should be. Bad.
That was my dad joke.
I liked it. So now I have Sirius Black's like little placard from I guess it's from the movie. It's not actually in the books of Harry Potter. It's the one from the 3rd movie that he's holding in all the signs. I have that on my sternum, but I completely forgot about it until that second.
It's because you're obsessed with Sirius Black and you want to make him the father of your children.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very in love with him. He was my favorite character from the books. So, and I know it wasn't a book thing, but there wasn't a whole lot like other than like a black dog or like a constellation or
Yeah.
something, which I could have done. But anyway, I thought the plaque was cool, so I got that instead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's his prison number.
Yeah, exactly. So these ones are a bit more unorthodox for fandoms, but I do have a pie tattoo for math, you know.
Because you're cool AF.
Very cool. Have a math degree, got a math tattoo. Just pushed up my glasses. Um, I have 3 beer related tattoos. 2 of them are logos. One is a shark, which is a logo for a beer, but it's also on brand.
Did you get it for the sharkness of it, or did you get
Both? I like the beer and I love sharks, so it was like a double whammy. I was like, one is a horse, but it's very much part of where we're from.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah.
And the other one is just like hops, like what goes in beers. And then I have 7 or 8 shark tattoos because I think sharks are a fandom and I'm obsessed with them.
You are.
What about you? What tattoos do you have related to fandoms?
I love that we just brush over the fact that you're obsessed with sharks. It's like, yeah, I'm just obsessed with sharks. It's fine.
I know. I'm like, I listed like 7, 8 total tattoos. And then I'm like, and then I have 7 or 8 more that are just sharks. NBD though. That's completely normal.
It's fine. They're almost the kings of the sea.
Aww.
Anyway, so I obviously don't have as many as you. I don't know why. I don't know. But my very first tattoo, I got the Deathly Hallows for Harry Potter right behind my right ear, I think. I don't remember.
Looks like it. Where you're pointing to is your right ear.
Yeah, I know, but I can't actually remember if it's the right ear or the left.
It's because you can't see it. It's such a hard spot.
It is. I also have the supernatural tattoo on my back. I also have an ACOTAR tattoo. Like, was really my first like real big piece, I guess I'll say. It's really an ACOMAF tattoo. Like, it's ACOTAR number 2, A Court of Mist and Fury. It's more based on that book than it is on ACOTAR. I've said before that like the second one is probably my favorite one. So so it's like a tattooed hand sort of reaching into a framed landscape of like 3 mountains against the night sky, and like the night sky is all twinkly, and then there's like ivy curling around the frame. So and it's like a really big it's like a decently big piece on my leg, like my entire side of my upper leg. And then I actually just had a consultation last week for my next one. It's gonna be, I want it to be based just on my love of reading in general. Like, I don't want it to be book specific. So it's gonna be an open book with lots of color, and then she's gonna design like a lot of fantasy elements, like sort of pouring out of the book or like escaping the book. Yeah,
love it.
It's gonna be cool. And I'm sort of giving my tattoo artist a bit of free reign. Like, we looked at a couple things and she took down some of my ideas, and like we looked at some pictures and she like wrote down what I liked and what I didn't like, but I'm sort of giving her a bit more free reign with this one, so I'm excited. And I think it's gonna go on my forearm. I'm still like, do I want it on my forearm or my upper arm? I haven't decided, but I will say that tattoos are super addictive, and like it's so funny. Like, they're such a big deal before you have one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and then you get the first one and then you're like, oh, it's not as big a deal as I thought it would be. And then you get a second one. You're like, oh yeah, this is nothing. And then you start to get more and more and more and more. Like,
yeah. And then one day you look down and you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're completely covered. So, yeah. And I will say, like, I was decently, like, in general, I'm decently body conscious. I think, like, as women in our society, we are all sort of conditioned to be slightly body conscious. And I
Mm.
find that having the tattoos, especially on my legs, which is sort of my most body conscious area, actually makes me
Mhm.
more confident.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Like, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
makes me, I don't know why, and maybe this sounds shallow, but it just makes me feel like pretty.
Well, you love the tattoos so much, or you wouldn't have gotten them, one would
Yeah.
assume. So like it makes you love an area that maybe you didn't love as much before. And I love them so much for that.
Yeah.
Like when you don't want to wear shorts and then you're like,
Yes.
but then you can see these beautiful
Exactly.
tattoos.
100%. That's it. Like, realistically,
Hmm.
for me, shorts, not that I didn't wear them, but that they were like, I was really body conscious, especially about shorts.
Hmm.
And like the tattoos, I find they really help. I do have another one on the other side of my leg that's not a fandom, but it's still sort of in your shark realm. I've got an orca whale because I love them the most.
It can be a fandom.
I can make it a fandom. So I
Yeah.
have a huge orca whale on the other side of my thigh. So I'm not just going, like, I'm going around with like, it's just extra way to show off even more, like show off both legs. So
Yeah. I love it.
anyway, a little bit off topic, but if you guys have any tattoos, like, share them with us, please. We
Yeah,
love to see
definitely.
them.
So I guess we'll get right into it. Just a heads up, as always, we're not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get a little saucy if they haven't already.
I don't think we've had too much sass so far in our first couple of weeks of this book.
No,
I
we
find this
haven't.
book relatively tame in sass.
It is. It's definitely a slow roll.
Yeah, slow burn.
Yeah.
Uh, just as a side, I just finished a book, and I was really expecting it to be a lot more sassy than it actually was. Like, so it's called Zodiac Academy.
Mm.
And so I read it, and I read the synopsis, and it was like, it is like a Fae based book, and the Fae all like, it's like the synopsis of the book was like, the two twins have been accepted into this academy. Everybody takes what they want if they have the power to take it. And like, all the reviews and stuff for it made it seem like it was going to be really like dark, really edgy, like really sexy. And I was like low key really excited for some sass and some sexy times. And there was not like barely anything at all. Like, in
Really?
terms of sexy times, there was like nothing. There was one uh like digit digit moment.
Oh, penetration.
Think
Digit
yeah.
penetration. Sorry. Sorry, I had to.
One digit penetration moment, and that's it for the whole book. And I was really disappointed.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm guessing because there's a lot more. I haven't read it yet, but there's a lot more books in the series. But I've heard that the rest, I guess maybe the rest of it gets there because I thought that it was very
Yeah.
spicy, but I don't
I'm
know. That could just
No,
be.
you're right. There's 7 more books, only 6 of which are out. The last one's supposed to come out this December. So I'm hoping
Oh, okay.
once I get a bit more into it, I'll get some more sass. I also just finished Neon Gods. That one was
Mm,
decently spicy. But oh my god, did they
yeah.
ever have sex a lot? Like, all you think of, the same thing with like, there's a few other books that I've read this summer. Same thing. It's like, it's like they have so much friggin' sex. It's like there's no way that that girl would not have a UTI.
Yeah. That's the Kindle Unlimited for you.
But like, remember I sent you sorry guys, I know we're getting off topic, but I sent Catherine I found a book. Sometimes, like, you know how maybe no one else gets these, and maybe I get them because I've downloaded them in the past. You get these like crappy reader apps like
Mm,
Radish and like like crappy stuff like that. So
they usually come up on Facebook and it's like they've stolen the artwork for it.
Oh, guaranteed. So sometimes, like, if a story, like, if they advertise a story to me, it sounds ridiculous. I'll just click on it just to see what happens. And then I end up spending $40 reading a really bad book, which is what happened. And what was it called? Like 4 alpha, something like that. And 4 alpha mates or something. And it was literally about this girl, werewolf, who had quadruplets, 4 brothers. They were all her mates. And they just had, like...
They were her brothers?
They were all brothers with... No, they weren't her brothers.
Oh, okay. Jesus Christ.
No, I'm not into incest. Oh, well, I mean, I guess it's sort of still incest. But, like, it literally just had, like... I'm not going to call them orgies because the guys never did it with each other, but because incest. But they literally had like giant sex times, and like she would be like, one guy would be inserting from the front, another guy would be inserting from behind, another guy would be rubbing her clit with his fingers, and like the other guy would be like squeezing her boobs, and that was how they had sex all the time. And then sometimes the guy, like one of the guys, sometimes she'd be like giving a guy a hand job or a blow job during this whole, and I'm like, how? Like, I don't understand how. Then like one of the guys would finish and then another guy would come in and take over, and I'm like, so, and she would end up like having like 6 orgasms in the run of a sexual session, and I'm like, that's not, no, she would be so sore.
Yes. It's not sustainable.
It is not sustainable. It was a ride.
Yeah, I'd say.
And it was like over 200 chapters. I didn't finish it all. I got to like chapter 170 something and I was like, this is ridiculous.
It's so hard to stop though. I've read them too. Like I've downloaded the app, but like I haven't gotten to the point where I'll pay for it. I'm like, how do you earn these coins so that I can get it for free? But yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Some of them are good sometimes. It's like
it's true. I've found a gem or two. Like not like that it's well written, but that the story's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of them do obviously turn into books. Many books have started there. Like Throne of Glass started on a website, and so did After We Fall and all those ones. Yeah, they started as like Harry Styles fanfics.
Did they?
So let's get back into week 3. So this week we're talking chapters 19 to 28. I guess last week we ended with Feyre and Tamlin swimming in the pool of starlight. There were a few thirsty looks on either side, and we for some reason got Lucien's backstory from Tamlin. And there was a little moment of understanding between Lucien and Feyre on their ride home.
Yeah, because he totally like left her to die from the Naga. It's fine. It's 100%. Fine. She's cool with it.
She was cool with it, which I'm like,
I don't know if I
would hold a grudge.
I agree.
And if I held a grudge, I feel like I would feel less bad at the end of book 2 if I remembered this moment, if I was Feyre.
Yeah. At the end.
Beginning of book 3. End of book 2, beginning of book 3. That whole
debacle.
Roller coaster. Anyway, so back to the book. The next morning, the gallery is clean and ready for viewing, and Tamlin takes Feyre, and at first she's like kind of shocked at Tamlin's kindness in getting all this ready. Like, even though literally he just asked the servants to do it, it's not like he went in there and like dusted it all himself. He's not doing that kind of shit.
No, because
but
don't you remember what Lucien said? High Fae were born to rule. So
yes,
he
yep,
doesn't
that's
sully. Tamlin's not going to sully his hands with dirt or dust.
no,
That's what the servants are there for.
it's true. You're
Ugh.
right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So anyway, she's shocked by that at first, but then she's really shocked by the art. And Tamlin is just amazed that like humans can feel. And he even kind of says that like he didn't realize that she could feel as much looking at art or feel as much as like he kind of can, and like you can tell that he really doesn't know a lot about humans. And it's also really condescending.
Like, sorry.
Like, I didn't
You
realize
had
that
feelings.
art made you feel things. Like, good job. So Tamlin leaves her to look at the art, and he tells her that she's allowed back whenever she wants to, which is so generous.
I know. You can look through
Sorry.
this room whenever you want.
Nobody else is using it. You won't be in anyone's way, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, anybody.
The only thing I will say is that I like that I sort of like that he left her there. Like, he didn't insist
Yeah.
on going with her through everything and like discussing
Mhm.
it or like watching how she reacts to it. Like, he obviously did for a couple, but like, I like that he at least was intuitive enough to be like, this is something she should look at on her own.
Yes, 100%. And like, you can only imagine how exhausting it would have been if he had just followed around and like gave his little opinion on every fucking piece, and she would have been like, "You're wrong about fucking everything." Like, that's how I imagine it going if he actually walked her around, which isn't fair to him at all. But that's just not yet. So I guess after she's done with the room, as she sees Alice, and Alice shows her to a room with paintbrushes and canvases. And she says that there's so many different paint colors, and there's like more than she could ever imagine. And obviously we know in the little house that they had, the little cottage, she had like I think 3 different color paints or 4 or something, I can't remember, that she painted the whole house with, basically like doodled over basically. So obviously just even normal colors would be more than she'd expect. But then on top of that, I'm sure there's probably more colors in Fey world than there is here.
I'd
assume their eyesight's better, so you'd think that they could distinguish between.
But like, this is sort of like, I feel like most artists don't just like pick up their palette and then squeeze paint on it and then like paint. Like, they mix colors to get what they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like,
yeah,
I don't know, I feel like she's a real artist, so I feel like she could do a whole lot with, like, it wouldn't be necessary for her to have every single color given to her. She could make whatever she wants.
Yeah, like if you have white and black, you can make anything darker or lighter, to my limited understanding of nothing paint wise.
Well, yeah. And again, limited knowledge for me as well, so I'm not even sure how that really goes. Color theory, not my thing.
Yeah. One of my favorite fan theories is that her paintings are just shit and nobody will tell her. I obviously don't think it's true, but I think it's the funniest thing in the entire
it's very
world.
Funny.
Because like if you look back at all the parts of the books and you're like, just imagine if that was so bad, but everybody's just like trying to get into her pants or just like in love with her too much to say that was shit. Anyway, so we kind of get like a montage here of Feyre painting. Weeks pass. She continues to paint. She never lets Tamlin or Lucien see her paintings. Sometimes Tamlin has to go out hunting and she can't distract herself with painting, so she just waits for him in the house like a pretty little princess. she does talk of her dreams, and I think we talked of this last week, of a pale woman ripping her to shreds, which is awful.
I feel like this is also never really addressed.
It's not, because I completely forgot that it happened until this
Yeah, me
read.
too.
And like, it has to be the bond. That's what I think.
I don't know.
Can't really get too
I
much
don't know.
into
I
it,
like,
but
yeah, this is perplexing.
like, she doesn't have any like seer powers in her life as a
No,
mortal at
no.
all.
Hmm.
So I think it must have something to do with later
Yeah.
events. Maybe we'll jump back to it in book 2 when we completely forget that it ever
Yeah.
happened. Anyway, so she wonders at one point, I guess, after it's been weeks, if the paint was kind of a distraction to get her to forget her family and the potential danger. And she ends up like working herself up into a rage basically by supper time. She goes for a walk in the garden and Tamlin follows her. Um, I think part of the rage is like she feels guilty that she forgot about her family, but also very sad that her family like doesn't remember she was taken at all. And she probably also feels a bit of righteous anger, I would call it, that they didn't do anything when she went out to hunt at 14 or when she was actually taken by a monster. Um, all she did in her life was for them, and she's kind of having a battle with herself. Like she shouldn't feel bad for living now and doing what she wants because like she's done so much for other people. So she's really having a hard time adjusting.
Yeah.
Or maybe I think she's also just kind of feeling bad because she wasn't having a hard time adjusting because she was so happy with all the painting.
But like, I don't know, man. It's really hard. Like, I think that most people have some selfishness to them, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
most people in their existence do something selfishly, right? Like,
Yeah.
for the most part, like, you go into the career you want either because it makes you happy or because it pays you well, and paying you well
Yeah.
makes you happy. And like, even people that give their time to others and like volunteer and all this stuff, they do it because doing things for other people makes them feel good. And it's like, it makes you happy to make other people happy. So that's still selfish. So like, I
Yeah.
feel like she is sort of um she's being a bit selfish here, which makes her feel bad because she hasn't been able to be selfish for so many years. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like she has actually had to give up so much of her like existence just to feed her ungrateful family. And now she
Yeah.
finally is like happy and like fitting in somewhere and like, whatever. And when she finally remembers her family who were terrible, she's like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
she feels guilty for not feeling guilty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think she's like kind of projecting that a bit and being like, oh, they gave me the paint to placate me. And it's like, you asked for the paint though. Like they're not just they're trying to find a place for you to fit in because you're going to live
Yeah,
here.
but they sort
Like,
of are placating her too. Like,
oh, for sure. But they're trying to find something for
mm,
her to do to feel meaningful and good in her life. Like I don't think I don't know. But I agree. Like I think exactly like you said, I think that most people do most of the things that they do for selfish reasons, and that's not a
no,
bad
not
thing.
even. I mean,
Like
what else are we like? Not we're not getting into existentialness here, but like,
why else are we on this earth?
we're not gonna go there. But like, we only have one. For most of us, we only have one life.
Unless we're cats? Like, are you like worried that you're gonna affront a vampire or something in this conversation?
No. Well, I'm thinking more like people that believe in reincarnation.
Sorry. Oh God. Yeah, but reincarnation, you generally forget your previous lives. So it still only feels like one life. So I'm not just being completely ignorant of other religions here.
Anyway, I'm just saying, like, we feel like we only have one life, so like, yeah, you should do things for you and don't completely give yourself in service of others. Like, don't be miserable just to make others happy. Like, do things you want to do.
Yeah. So during her, I guess, rant in her head, she grabs a rose and cuts her hand. And the rose comes from a bush that apparently Tamlin's father gave to his mother upon meeting. So Tamlin tells her this basically as he comes up and grabs her palm and kisses it. And then he kisses the other and he's like got blood on his mouth, but he's also healed her. It's just a bit of an odd moment, I thought. Like, I get it's maybe trying to be cute. Like,
let me lick the blood from your hands.
Like, you're not a vampire, so
that we know of.
It's true, I guess. He tells her that the way that like humans experience everything so quickly is so like interesting to him. He's drawn to it. And I kind of hate that line. It's super cheesy, but it's also like really annoying reading it as a human. And you're like, what else are we supposed to do? We only get so many years. Like, we don't live hundreds, if not thousands of years like you, Faye. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a bit like condescending. Like, obviously we can't help that we only have 80 years to live, not thousands. Like, give us a break, man.
Yeah. We do our best most of the time. We be selfish. I know like it's a cute moment for them, but it kind of gets her thinking of the fact that she's going to grow old and die, which I would assume is not what he's trying to do at this point to make her think of that. She doesn't obviously find it as cute as he thought it might be, which is another reason why I kind of struggled with this book because like he's just so disconnected with humans and her that I'm like, what is happening? He does kiss her on the cheek and says one day he'll explain everything when she's safe. So for the reader, it's obvious that like there's a lot going on, but also the weeks that passed previously, I'm sure Feyre thought meant a lot too. So how, like, we can't really blame her for not really understanding what is happening. Like, she doesn't get that that he's saying something here that means something, because she spent weeks that we have no knowledge of. So like this is just a pinpoint that Sarah J Maas wanted us to see, but obviously for Feyre it's just another day walking through the garden with Tamlin. Feyre ends up going out into the woods in the next scene, and she can feel a presence behind her, so she sets a little trap. And then she like crouches down again, and a while later she ends up catching Tamlin hanging by his legs. He can let himself down because of his retractable claws, and he hands her some papers after like they kind of have a bit of banter back and forth. But on the papers are 5 poems, and each one is apparently dirtier than the last. And I'm wondering, where are those poems? Because I would like to read all 5 of them.
But like, does he must read them out to her, does he?
I think so.
Because
He reads the first
she
few,
can't
and then I think
she can't read.
he does read them
She
all out
can't
to
read.
her. Yeah, he does read them all out to her. Yeah. And yeah, the poems have her words in them from the list that she made and then threw out and then he found.
Yeah.
I still kind of think he should know better though, because like she's obviously embarrassed by this, and he knows that she can't read. So, like, I get he's trying to do something nice, but it seems a bit much. But by the end of it, she is laughing about it because I guess they are hilarious.
But like,
Uh,
I don't see how. I don't know. I guess like I don't overly see how that's helping her. You know what I mean? Like, how is that helping her figure out those words? Because they did give us a couple of the poems, and yeah, he used the words, but like, they still, like, if you didn't understand what the words meant, you wouldn't get it from the context of those poems.
no, but I feel like she knows what the words mean. She just couldn't read them.
I guess.
I
But
don't know.
then, if she knows what the words means and just couldn't read them, then how is she? I don't understand then how she figures out that they're from the list that he got from her. Like, how does she know
He
that?
definitely, yeah, he definitely read out the first few though. If not, I think he read out them all, and she was just like, I laughed very
Yeah.
hard. Um, but yeah, it's not the best way to teach anybody how to read, but I think he's like, I don't know, he's trying, I guess. But then we get a little backstory, and Tamlin says he isn't one who enjoys losing. I'm going to call a bit of emphasis on that. I
Yes.
think that's important.
Which we can sort of already tell. Like, he's a bit of a
Mm,
baby when he doesn't get his way. Like, remember, he tantrums.
he
He
claws.
claws. Yeah. And he like goes off and sulks by himself. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we know this about him. He's a big baby.
Yeah. He explains that they used to have contests in his father's war band of who would be able to write the dirtiest limericks. So he like made himself good at it because he didn't want to ever lose.
Lame.
Um, yeah. Feyre brings up the rose bush again and asks why his father gave it to his mother when they met instead of when they like married. And he explains that they were mates. So if you find your mate, basically you feel it instantly, and marriage is kind of insignificant in comparison. Like mates are just that, they're soulmates. There's only one for you. If you find your mate, it doesn't matter if you marry them or not because you just are what you are, kind of is like how I took the conversation. Do you have any comments on mates?
I have so many comments on mates.
I know.
Like, I feel like a lot of people in this fandom have negative things to say on mates. And I just can't. I just can't
Yeah.
I don't know. It speaks to a part of my soul that I didn't know existed. Like, I don't know why. I just like I have no idea what it is. Like, I just find it, I don't know, romantic as hell.
Mm,
I have no idea why. I cannot explain it. I'm not a particularly romantic person, but the idea
mm.
of like having that one soulmate and having it instantly click and like knowing that you can't live without that other person, I don't know, I just really like it. And like I also I feel like a lot of people take they get upset and sort of with Sarah like SJM, Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
look at me, like we're on a first name basis. But I find a lot of people get upset with her and say like she uses the mate bond almost like an excuse, like, oh, mate bond, so like it like
Yeah.
erases everything else that happened in a story, like, you know what I mean? Like she
Mm-hmm.
uses it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And like I don't find that. I don't know. Like personal opinion, I just that doesn't I just don't see it that way. And I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really also like how um we'll meet later on that like not all mates are perfect for each other. Like just because they're your
Yeah.
soulmate doesn't mean that they're like good for you. Like they might be made for you and perfectly complement you, but that doesn't mean you're going to be happy together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it.
They kind of get into that with the conversation that they're having now,
Yeah.
I think. My biggest issue with SJM, particularly in
Okay.
mates, is that they're rare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're rare and
you
yet
you telling me that 3 got 2 out of
yeah.
3? That is not rare. That's a fucking
Yeah.
unicorn times 2.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Anyway.
Like it yeah, I don't think that was correct, but I also feel like so the set of characters that we deal with in this series are exceptional. You know what I mean? Like they're going through
Yes.
exceptional circumstances. They end up like I don't want to get too much into it, but they end up like, this is an epic fantasy romance thing. So obviously there's going to be big bads happening. There's going to be a lot of heroism and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice. So I feel like yeah, I think rare maybe it wasn't the best word, but like I also think that just because the set of characters that we're dealing with it like we have this mate circumstance multiple times, I don't think that means that they're not rare. I think that we have a very narrow lens on a very exceptional group of
Mm-hmm.
people. And so like yeah, we're seeing them have this connection because they are exceptional people.
Yeah, I
Like
guess. It's just wild that like there's so many bonds within this group of
6.
10, 12
Yeah.
people. Well, also, yeah. Anyway, not going to get too far into that, but if she hadn't have called them rare, I would have been more fine
Yeah.
with it.
And
So,
like at the same time, Tamlin is explaining them as rare. You got to think of it coming from his perspective is like maybe for them they're not saying rare in terms of mates finding each other. Maybe they're saying rare in terms of how long it takes you to find them, because remember if they're thousands of years old, they could live
yeah.
like 400 or 500 years before they meet like their mate.
Yeah.
So like maybe he means rare that way. Like and on top of that, Prithian as it stands is divided into the 7 territories, and it doesn't actually seem like there's a lot of travel between.
Well, there definitely isn't
No,
now,
but even
but
before,
but
it didn't
like
seem like there was like maybe between the royalty they would travel between for
mm,
like emissary purposes. But I don't think before, I don't think they were all just going to each other's courts willy-nilly, especially not like the regular people.
yeah, I'm not sure though, and I don't think this comes up until either next half of this part or maybe next week, but like when they talk about the summer festival, the like
Kalanmai? No, we've already had Kalanmai. The
no.
summer solstice.
No. Kalamni is
Oh,
next. The summer
right.
solstice. Yeah, the summer solstice. When they talk about that, I think Alice says that it used to be something that you'd go to the summer court for. I'm pretty
But
sure.
like
So I think that like they would travel for like the summer solstice and the winter solstice, but it would probably be like the royals for
But even
sure.
still, that's still only one night a year.
Yeah, but if it's something that you feel as soon as you see them. But in some cases it's not too. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Because like we see later there's a couple that like knew each other completely growing up. I think it's in the third book or something. They're like minor characters, but they see each other growing up, grew up together, and it didn't snap into place until they'd been away from each other
Yeah.
for a while. So like it's not an exact science.
No.
But I don't know for sure that I think it's rare. But that's besides the point. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it. I know that how I feel about it. I know how you feel about it, and
Yeah.
it makes my heart go pitter patter. I can't help it.
I know. And like obviously I want every character that I love in the book to
Yeah.
have a mate. So like I'm not going to be mad if they get
Yeah.
one. But that doesn't change the fact that like I don't know. Doesn't seem rare. But anyway, onward and upward. Or onward and downward as it may be. But she asks Tamlin where his parents are, and he explains that his father and his two older brothers were bad. Bad in as they kept human slaves. His mother was very kind, but she loved his father and her children. And it kind of seems like one of those situations, like you said, where they were mates, but maybe they weren't the best suited. Like they didn't have, seems like they might have had opposing political
Yeah.
views, is what I'll say.
Yeah, and like the way that it made it seem was like the mom didn't agree with keeping slaves and being brutal, but she loved the father, so she indulged it and just sort of looked past it.
Mm-hmm. I guess while Tamlin was growing up, he learned he was only really good at fighting and killing, and Feyre kind of doubts that. And Tamlin tells her that he plays the fiddle, which I kind of think is hot. Just enjoy a musician.
No to the fiddle player.
Why? What else is he gonna play in Fairy?
I don't know. Freaking mandolin.
Less hot.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, a fiddle is hotter than a mandolin, but I think in the long line of instruments, fiddle is way down here. Like, I feel like I would put harmonica above fiddle.
Oh, well, harmonica, they're good with their lips.
Yeah.
So, Tamlin says that he didn't want to be High Lord, but I guess his power just kept growing, and that's something that happens, I guess, with every family that has the lineage of High Lord. His whole family could feel it, and anyway, unfortunately, everyone in his family except for him ended up being murdered by an enemy court, and he was spared for some reason.
Wonder why.
Yeah. He explains that he wasn't trained to be a High Lord since it wasn't expected that he would be the only child left. And a lot of the court, like the Spring Court, defected rather than stay, where a warrior beast was the leader. And Feyre kind of feels connected to him in this moment because Nesta has called her little more than an untrained beast.
Which
before.
is Nesta's own fault because she didn't teach her to read and write.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a moment in their relationship, I think. But I will also mention that they're preparing for Calamni, which is Fire Night, in the distance. And obviously it's visible to Feyre, so she asks, what the fuck is that? And he explains that there's a ritual to create magic for the year ahead and a party. And other court members come for the celebration. And she is very much not invited.
Yeah. And And it was sort of like, I love that part because it was sort of like oh, I'm not invited. And she was sort of like joking around. And they were like, no, fuck, no, you are not allowed to come. Like, very obviously, like, no. Like,
It's very much you're not allowed up in the East Wing or something
yeah, from Beauty
from
and the Beast. Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
And
Yeah.
also very, like, you're human, stay the fuck inside. And it sort of gets her
Hmm.
hackles raised. I feel like this is not smart on their part. You know what I mean? Like, they
Yes.
should have been a bit more candid about, like, it's dangerous, like, stay inside, please. Like, not, fuck no, you're a human, you're not invited. Like, obviously
Yeah.
that's gonna make her curious and gonna make her
Oh,
pissed.
100%.
So,
Hmm. Yeah. So they walk back to the gardens, and he immediately tells her to stay hidden. And Lucien and Tamlin are talking to somebody nearby that she can't see. And they talk about her again and about Tamlin not giving up. And the invisible fairy says to Tamlin, although you have a heart of stone, you certainly keep a host of fear inside it. And we end up hearing that this fairy is an adder, and we'll hear more about him, them, the race, etc. later. So next scene, Calamni is happening. There are drums, and she feels like they're summoning her, but again, she's not invited. And she does feel like there's a string pulling her towards the fire, which is such an interesting imagery. A string pulling her to the fire.
yeah.
Hmm.
We're gonna, like, I really hope that when we do the next book that we remember some of these details and harken
I
back to
know,
them.
me too. Tamlin shows up sans shirt. Woo! He has a bow and arrow over his shoulder, and no one has explained to Feyre what this holiday is. So she kind of asks him what he's doing, and he's all solemn and like, I've got to take part in the great rite. And he tells her to lock herself in her room and set a snare. And he basically growls at her,
He
which,
does it a lot. He's a growler.
he is, that's true. But she kind of ends up assuming that the great rite is something violent because of the way that he's like, be careful, stay in your
Set
room.
a snare.
Yeah. She goes to her room as she's told, but a wild, wicked voice tells her to go to the fires, which is like, woo, hot. And like she fights with herself a bit and she tries to obey them and not go, but obviously she got to go. What else are you supposed to do? There are hundreds of fae there, and she notices there's a glamour on her, so she can't really see the fairies correctly. There's a path of fae leading to a cave, and it's clear that that is the focus of whatever the hell this is.
So it's like there's fae lining like both sides of a path, right?
Yeah.
But
so she's like, obviously this cave is
where everyone's going,
where the battle is happening.
I know,
you know. She kind of moves to the back because she doesn't really know what's going on, so she doesn't want to get caught up in it, but she also wants to be able to see. So she just moves a bit further back, and then three fae kind of like turn her towards them, and they look like high fae, but they don't have masks. They're obviously not from the Spring Court, and they are surprised that she's human. And they say they want some fire night fun, which, ew. Very gross. They start dragging her towards the trees, but she struggles and ends up falling, and strong hands grab her. And they say, there you are, I've been looking for you. And it's a deep, sensual male voice. Very swoony. So
I will say, I've always wanted to be saved by a deep and sensual male voice.
Yeah, same. So she's still looking at the three fairies and can't see who just caught her, but she can tell that the three fairies are very afraid of him. And she kind of turns around to thank him, but is just shocked by his beauty.
Yeah.
She's like, he's the most beautiful man I have ever seen.
And like, yeah, I have no words.
So he has short black hair and violet eyes, which sound interesting. And the night presses closer in on him, and he's not wearing a mask, so he's not from the spring court.
I will say that, like, we can already tell just from the description of him and how, like, he has no name, but he saved her. Like, we can tell that we're going to meet him again.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think we do next week.
Yeah. So keep your eyes and your ears and your whatever. Keep everything peeled.
Ears are peeled. She basically lies to him and says that her friends brought her here, and he asked to kind of escort her to where she's going, but she does recognize that he's kind of scarier than the other fairies, even if his intentions aren't as bad, we'll say, as the other ones were. She can recognize that he is clearly powerful and scary.
And like, I wish I could explain it without reading it word for word from the book, but it's like the way she describes it is like he exudes power and confidence, and like he's like got this quiet feralness to him. So like she can tell he's powerful, and like he's got this like deep voice, like, and it's quiet, and it's like he doesn't whisper or anything, but like he's got such a quiet volume that it's like that's sort of intimidating in its own right.
Yeah, he's got a commanding voice. He's not like he doesn't have to speak up to get your attention.
Got a commanding presence, and of course, like she said, he's the most beautiful fae she's ever seen in her life. So like I feel like that commands a bit on its own.
Yeah. And he also is like playing with her a bit, and he says all of the monsters have been let out of their cages tonight, which is like pitter patter my little heart that loves a villain.
Who doesn't? Well, like, honestly, who does not love a villain that can be redeemed?
Yeah.
If you didn't, like, if you're listening, you didn't love Kylo Ren, like, who even are you?
Yeah, I can't even get into that because that is like
I know.
One of my ships.
That's why I brought it up. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. So she walks away from him because she's a bit worried that he's just going to snap his fingers and she'll die or something. And she ends up close to people again, which is smart. But then Lucien notices her and literally runs over to her, hauls her body and bones over his shoulder, and runs back to the house. And he is panicking. He says that Fire Night is the start of spring, so the crops rely on the magic to regenerate. And of course, the magic is regenerated by a giant orgy. Because fairies.
They're so loose. They're so loose with their sexuality.
Loose and liberal. But it starts with the High Lord taking great and terrible power into his body and being the hunter and finding the maiden. And you're just like, ugh. So obviously the magic's going to consume him. And he won't know his name. And then he kills a stag. And then he picks a rando fairy from the line of women by the cave. And it's just so, I don't know. It's so typical, like, male.
Yeah, like that's how they have to regenerate the power. And everything relies on the man, like, going crazy and picking one woman to essentially dominate and have sex with.
The maiden.
And all those women were like lining up on the side of the cave as like, hey, pick me.
Yeah. Toxic masculinity? It's not the right word, but kind of.
It's all about the masculinity and the like, ooh, me Tarzan, you Jane. You know what I mean? That's what I get from it.
Exactly that. Yeah. Well, he kills an animal and then it's just so much.
And again, they don't need the food, so they're just killing the stag. What are they going to do with it?
Symbolically, it's just a... No, I can't even think more about it because then I'm just go too far. Anyway, so Lucien is really glad that he found her because he knows that Tamlin would want Feyre once he smells her, and she gets another warning to stay in her room till morning. Feyre's in her room and she kind of realizes that she's a little bit jealous of this woman, whoever she is, which is kind of understandable, I guess. But it's also like, someone should have told her before right now what the fuck was going on. Like, it's not really fair to her.
Well, yeah, like her and Tamlin have been gearing towards an understanding, and it's like, all of a sudden they're like, he has to have sex with another woman. And it's like, oh, cool, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are they? But yet they all expect her to be cool with it.
Yeah. Were they just never going to tell her? Maybe that's what the plan was. I don't know.
That's rude too.
Oh, 100%. So she has a nap and then she goes to the kitchen for a snack. And she finds Tamlin in the hallway, or Tamlin finds her basically. And he's covered in paint and she can tell where he's been touched based on the smudges. Which is interesting if you think of later in the books.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, a
tiny bit. He pins her to the wall and says he smelled her and she wasn't there. And he's half wild with the magic still. I'm like, is it the magic or is it a fucking excuse to be an asshole?
He's being he's being very beastly, isn't he? Like wild, right? Like a wild animal.
But he's like that some days anyway, so I'm like, is it really the magic, or is this just who you fucking are? He says that when he couldn't find her, he picked someone else.
He had sex with someone else. Nice.
Yep. And he said she asked him not to be gentle, but he would have been gentle with her, her being Feyre. You're like, thanks, I guess? Like, I didn't ask you...
have sex with me.
A, to have sex with me at all, or B, to be gentle if we were going to have sex in the first place. Like,
yeah, just... like, I feel like this is a borderline consent issue. Yeah, because like they haven't even kissed yet. Like, and he's like, I would have been gentle with you, and I wanted you, and I smelled you, and you weren't there, as if like accusing her of like being there but not there,
doing it on purpose.
And it's like, bitch, she didn't even know what calumny was.
Exactly.
So, and I get he's like half wild with the magic, insert quotes, air quotes, but like, dude, get a fucking clue.
Yeah. She does ask him, like, why would I want someone's leftovers? Which is maybe not the best thing to say to him, but I love it. And
like, she not backing down for nobody.
No, and she's still sassy, and like I do appreciate that. But then he bites her neck, not hard enough to bleed, but kind of like to keep her in place, which hallway neck bites are an SJM thing, apparently. Just saying. But this makes her hella horny. Like, she's feeling it and she wants him. And he tells her not to disobey him. And she slaps him in the face and tells him not to tell her what to do. And
you go, girl.
I love that she slapped him. Like, she still wants him, but
well, like,
not when he's being like this.
But at the same time, like, I can recognize that it's not an ideal situation, at the same time realize it's an incredibly hot situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously
Yeah.
you don't want anybody coming up and like touching you against your will. But at the same time, like him being all like, I smelled you and you weren't there. Like, I wanted you. Sort of like, that's gonna make you
Yeah.
be like, ha, like maybe,
More than anybody
yeah,
else that was in that
yeah,
line. Yeah, it definitely makes you feel
yeah. But,
special.
and then for him to be like to want to like, to sort of be like coming up on her, like she's obviously turned on
Hmm.
by him, and then he like does stuff to like make her even more turned on, like again,
Yeah.
I see the side that's not ideal, but I also see the side that's like, yes, please.
Yes. I agree completely. So the next morning, she basically has a giant bruise on her neck, and she thinks about putting something
Like
there, and
yeah, she was
then
like a scarf or something, right?
yeah, I think she was gonna like make sure her hair covered it in like a scarf, whatever, just to make sure that it wasn't obvious. And then she was like, "Fuck it, he should see what he did. This is his fault. He was a big
Yep,
brute."
true.
And Lucian sees it at lunch and basically just asks what it's from. And Tamlin explains that he bit her because she couldn't follow
So
orders.
like, this is actually a part that originally I found really comical, but when you look into it, this is victim blaming 150%.
Yeah.
Like, he bit her because she couldn't follow orders? No, take responsibility for your own fucking actions, dude.
Yes. Yeah. Also, nobody told her what the fuck was going on. It's not like it's her fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, she says that she like goes and draws that afternoon, and she draws Tamlin and Lucian as pigs. And I kind of like to see those
Yeah,
paintings.
agreed.
Uh, they apologize to each other at supper, and he brings her white roses, which I just looked up the meaning of, and they symbolize loyalty, purity, and innocence, which is definitely interesting because I think that's exactly how he sees
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. The innocent,
Uh,
and pure part, maybe.
yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't know about the loyalty bit.
Well, I think he wants her to be loyal to him alone. I think it's like from his point of view,
I
maybe.
guess.
I can see
Yeah.
it working. Um, so the next night, Pharaoh wears a dress. And while she's getting ready, Alice is obviously helping her. And they kind of have a little chat. And Alice is from the summer court, and her family is still there. When she gets to supper looking very beautiful, uh, Lucian realizes, I'll say with air quotes again, that he's late for something incredibly important, and he
Yeah. So
bolts.
she's been wearing like tunics and pants this entire time that she's been there. And this is like the first time they've seen her in a
Yeah.
dress.
She always wants to be ready to be
Yeah.
able to run, so she doesn't want to wear dresses. Um, Tamlin kind of vanishes a bunch of the table so that they're closer to each other after Feyre says how far away he is.
Yeah.
And he says that.
Can you
Sorry.
imagine like two people sitting down to dinner at like one of those huge Beauty and the Beast tables, and they're that
Yeah.
far apart? Like, it's giving me Bridgerton vibes. Do you remember that? Like
Mm.
in what,
Mm-hmm.
episode 6 of season 1?
I don't know them
Okay,
that well.
season 1, episode 6. They're having dinner in their dining room, and like he comes in and sits down, and she's on the very opposite end of the
Oh,
table,
yes,
and then
yes,
she's
yes.
like, I'll fix. He was like, you're so far away, and she's like, well, that's just an easy matter to remedy. And then she gets up with her plate and she's like, it is no trouble, truly. And then she goes over and sits next to him, and everybody judges them, and then they're literally there for like 2 minutes, and then they ravish each other outside. So that's I'm getting those vibes.
You've only watched the series once, I could tell.
No judgments, please.
No judgments at all. So anyway, like the same situation, except for instead of moving closer, he just disappears the complete middle of the table. And she kind of asks what the fuck happens with all that middle table shit. And he says it gets taken to the between. And it's kind of like a broom closet between worlds. Which is interesting to say, because, like, worlds, what does that mean? And, like, if there's room between the worlds, is that, like, the same room
for everybody?
For all worlds? Like, how... I feel like we're missing something here that we may get at some point.
I want to explore that broom closet, though. Think about how much cool shit would be in there.
Oh, so much. Like, if you're just trying to hide something quickly...
I wonder if you could take stuff from there and, like, claim it as your own. Like, if someone's hiding.
I don't know if it's a place you could actually go. I wonder. Like, can you... Because in, like, Harry Potter, you're not allowed to, like, banish a person, basically. Like, you can't.
Anyway.
Yeah. So Tamlin tells her that she looks beautiful. And she says that she like looked in the mirror before she left, and she's filled out a bit since being there and eating more than normal, obviously. And she does have some light in her eyes, so, like, she actually thinks that, like, she can see that she looks better too, which is another thing about Sarah J Maas's writing that I do appreciate, is, like, she does write characters that, like, aren't super thin and beautiful. They're, like, the right body shape for themselves. So I do appreciate that. After supper, she takes him to her painting room and they hold hands the whole way. Just like a bite to the neck, and now we're gonna hold hands.
Like, she forgave him way too easily. Like, he gave her a bruise. He assaulted her.
But she's happier than she was before, so she's gonna take what she can get, I guess. I guess. So when they get there, it takes him a while to light the candles in the room, and she wonders if he drained himself shortening the table. And, like, clearly the blight has fucked him over. She shows him some of her paintings, and she painted the glen with the moonlight pond for him. And she says that, like, she wants him to have it, but he kind of looks through her other paintings and he sees the forest and then the cottage, and he sees Isaac's hand in the hay, and that is, like, the only painting there that has any light in it. And he growls at it, which is kind of like he's jealous of something that happened before he even existed to her, even though he literally just fucked someone else roughly 2 nights ago. And not roughly 2 nights ago. I mean, they had rough sex. So a bit of a red flag there.
A flag rouge.
If you will. She also painted the creditors beating her father, basically. And he realizes that she was there for that. And that obviously makes him sad for her. He wants the snow-veiled woods painting, which is, like, basically, like, in the beginning of the first scene of the book, right before she kills his friend, she talks about how beautiful the woods is. And I think that's the, like, picture that she envisioned when she did this painting. So it's kind of an interesting picture for him to want. She also says to him that she like wants to be able to help with the blight. And she knows that, like, she's just an insignificant human, but she's just wondering if there's anything that she can do. But he says that she can't. And now he just wants her to stay there so he knows that she's safe and he can come home to her. And she kind of, well, no, he tells her that she really understands him like no one else has, and he doesn't feel alone with her. And she says that that night when she goes to bed, she doesn't lock her bedroom door.
Yeah. Ooh. I will say, like, I really enjoy, it seems that, like, we're definitely getting an emotional connection as well as a physical connection. Like
Yes.
SJM is really highlighting like she does take the time to highlight that like yes, they have their like sexual tension moments, but then they're also like they are bonding over their shared responsibility. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah.
responsible for this whole court. She was only responsible for 3 other people, but like he knows that she knows duty like no one else does. And
Yeah.
there's, you know, I really like that they're creating this emotional connection on top of the physical one.
Yeah. Like they were both thrust into a situation that they weren't ready for at a very young
Yeah.
age. For her, it was 14. For him, it was
Like
less young,
80
but
something.
yeah.
But yeah.
Um, so the next day, they go to a grassy glen and lie on the grass. And Tamlin mentions that the willow magic always makes him sleepy.
Yeah.
And he says that she's human, so she can't see or hear it. He says he can help her see it only if she pays a price, and it's a kiss. And she agrees to it, and he tells her to close her eyes, and he kisses her eyelids, and she can hear and she can see like everything without a glamour anymore. She says even Tamlin looks different. He almost glows and has sunlight over his head. She is kind of enamored by how he looks basically in this scene, and she like reaches up and tries to take his mask off.
Obviously it don't come off.
No. But obviously being a High Lord like physically manifests in the people, and like it gives them more of a, I would say, glow depending on where they're from. It does something.
I always took it to be it's like their power radiating from inside of them out, like because
like a light that goes buzz.
Yeah, and like he even says like, and a lot of the High Lords that we encounter will say, and that they can like tamp down on it and like pull that power inward so that they don't like let that radiate out of them as much. And
Yeah.
he's obviously choosing to like show her his like aura, his like shining light. He didn't have to do that, but he did.
No.
So
yeah, and she says that he tamps it back down and looks normal again. So she unsurprisingly starts to get sleepy too, because if the willow's going to make a High Lord sleepy, it's going to make a human sleepy.
It's just a willow tree that sings, right? Like it's nothing crazy.
I think so. I think it's just
a tree in a meadow singing a lullaby
instead of whomping it's singing. So he asks for his kiss, and she quickly kisses his hand, and they lie together. And as she's falling asleep, he whispers that she's exactly as he dreamed she'd be too.
Why two?
I don't know. I guess I didn't write it down, but maybe she said he looked like a dream.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I really like that she like she kissed his hand like as a like he totally expected her to kiss him on the mouth, and she was like, heck no, we're still getting to know each other.
Yeah, I thought that it would be like the kisses on her eyelids. I would have been like, that was a kiss.
So I guess she wakes up later on to a woman who's got skin like tree bark fixing her breakfast tray. And she was like, hey, where's Alice? And it's really funny because she's like, what are you talking about? And she was like, is she sick? Like, where's Alice? And she was like, are you crazy? Like, I am Alice. And so I guess Tamlin removed the glamour from her eyes and really removed it. So like now she now she can really see everybody. So it turns out Alice doesn't look high fae. The glamour made her look that way, But she actually has this like tree bark skin and is like weird, like a different color, and like she's taller and willowier than Feyre remembered. So like she looks completely different.
Yeah.
She sort of like admits that she knows that Tamlin put those glamours on her because if she saw all these fae that looked so different, she would like barricade herself in her room and like not come out. Um
Yeah.
She goes down to breakfast, and this is like one of my favorite parts of this book. So she goes down to breakfast and sees like there's a ton of fairies around, like a ton. Um
Yeah.
she asked Tamlin where they all came from. She's like, did something happen? Like, where did everybody come from? And he said they were there all along. So, like,
It's
isn't
so
that
awful.
terrible, but hilarious? So, like,
It's
every
so
time she thought she was sneaking around the manor, or like every time she thought she was doing something secretive, there were people everywhere watching her. So, like, just imagine, like, tiptoeing down a hallway thinking no one is seeing you, and literally everybody is looking at you. Like, so terrible, but hilarious at the same time. Um, she also, like, remembers then that the night that she escaped the house, because the puka showed up, like, as her father, she was trying to be stealthy and, like, climb down the trellis outside her window, like the ivy. And she thought that like she was being really stealthy, but like there were fairies everywhere watching her, and it just like as it just makes me giggle.
it's so bad. It's
I
so
know.
embarrassing. Can you
No,
imagine? I would just
I
walk out the
know me
front
too.
door. I'd be like, "Oh, they were here the whole time. I'm just gonna walk back to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
cottage.
I'd be like,
Thanks."
I'm going up to my room. I'm never coming out. Thank you very much and goodbye. Like 100%. Um She sort of says, like, well, if you hid all the spring court, like, then why could I see the bag creatures? Like the puka and the naga and
Mm,
whatever. And they're like, well, they're not a part of the spring court, so she could see them. And
yeah.
she also didn't see the adder when you just spoke about the adder visiting. She didn't get a look at him, but Tamlin threw the glamour over her, so the adder could not see her.
Hmm.
And he sort of says to her, like, if you see a scary creature or anything that makes you uncomfortable, pretend you don't see it. Which I think is weird advice.
Yeah.
Like, just pretend it's not there. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
just seems weird.
I know, but then I guess it's like
Like, it works for the Bogue, I
she
guess.
well, it does work for the Bogue, but then like if any of the he also doesn't know what she'll find creepy. So like what if she found Alice still creepy because she's just not used to it? Like I don't know. I get it maybe working because she's basically been ignoring them all so far and it she hasn't gotten into that much trouble. But like if someone's creep seems creepy or scary is different than if they're actually attacking you. Don't ignore them if they're attacking you.
I guess. But so his comment is like, pretend you don't see it, because if you get hurt, it wouldn't be pleasant for the creature or for me. That's what Tamlin says to her. Like,
Hmm.
I just like it just seems a weird way to care for her safety to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's
Red
also
flag.
another instant of well, yeah, red flag, but it's also another instant of like if you get attacked, it's your fault that this
Yes.
person is hurt and that I am mad.
Yes.
It's another
It
victim
is
blamey
100%. I
situation.
didn't even think of that. Like it is really.
I I would not have thought of it if you didn't say it earlier. So, but like looking at it all with that new lens, you're like, "Oh
It
yeah.
totally is. But,
Mhm.
like, it's insinuating essentially that if anything hurts her, then Tamlin is going to, like, destroy it. And
Yeah.
also, like, I guess he would feel sad she got hurt, like, I don't know if that's what he's insinuating too.
Maybe. Maybe that's how she takes it, because she doesn't take it as bad as
Yeah.
we did.
Anyway. So next morning comes and she's, like, on her way to paint in the garden, and all of a sudden she finds a high phase, like, head. Decapitated head.
It's like, isn't it like staked, like vampire
Yeah,
style?
no, I think it
King
was,
Vlad.
like, in a fountain or something.
Oh,
I'm not 100% sure I remember. Anyway.
I'm not either, but my
No,
just
ghost.
vision of it might have been in a fountain, but all I could think was
Yeah,
like Vlad
yeah,
steak.
100%. Um, it was really creepy because the mouth of the high fae, like the head, it was open and screaming, which is super creepy. And, like, I think we
Hmm.
can assume that she's never seen a decapitated head before. So
Well, yes,
so she
that
was a
makes
bit
sense.
creeped out. Um, she, like, sort of starts to freak out, and then Tamlin sort of finds her and, like, chills her out before she can, like, go full blown. It's funny because she sort of, like, not that she never mentions this decapitated head again, but she's not as traumatized by it as I would expect her to be. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, I guess like she's dealt with blood and guts and gore
I
before.
guess.
Still, though, I would be traumatized as fuck.
Um so um so Tamlin and Lucien check out the head, and they see that it was branded behind the ear with the Night Court sigil, which is a mountain with 3 stars over it. And they essentially say, obviously this comes from the Night Court. They're all sadistic, and they're torturers, and they're all terrible people up at the Night Court, essentially. Um, and Feyre is worried because they came so close to the estate to get the head there that maybe they'll come for her next. And, like, I just sort of want to be like, why do you think you're that important?
Yeah. But it's also like if they can get that close, she's easy pickings. She can't really fight back.
No, but why would she assume they want to attack her specifically? Anyway, whatever. Tamlin and Lucien sort of reassure her that, trust us, like, the Night Court, they're sadistic, but they're not stupid. They're not going to risk doing that. Like, essentially it's like all out war if they do that, and if they do invade, then they'll be ready to, like, squash them like bugs. um Tamlin sort of said, like, he admits that he was happy that he was small when his father sent the human servants away, um below the wall, and that they were happy to go even if they hadn't, like, seen any other season before, I guess because some of the Fae, like, were so barbaric and torturous. So he's like, I'm sort of glad that, like, I didn't have a chance to see their suffering. Anyway,
Hmm.
Feyre then has to, like, reassure her that, like, you're not your father, you're not your brothers, you're your own person. And it's sort of like, you don't know his father or brothers. You don't know how close, like, Tamlin is acting like them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like she's making all these assumptions about him that she doesn't really know. They've known each other for a few weeks.
Yeah. I get that, like, this is one of the first people that she's ever had a real emotional connection with, though, it
Yeah.
seems like. Because, like, she doesn't have it with any of her family. So I feel like she's very drawn in by her image of him. But he also has hundreds of years to account for that she doesn't. She's so
Yeah, it's
young.
true. Um so I guess they get news that the blight was crawling towards them. So Tamlin had to go out, like, beyond the estate and stays out overnight to like assess the Spring Court border. But he sent Feyre a message saying he was all right. So like we're sort of getting, she's nervous about him being gone, but he's trying to reassure her, like, you know, that he's okay. She says that she knew that she was falling for him after that and knew that she would end up with a broken heart. I mean, I feel like something that not many books take into consideration is the fact that, like, he is technically immortal. Like, he's not actually. He'll die, like, after he's 1,000 or 2 years old. But, like, for all intents and purposes, he's immortal compared to her. And, like, what happens when she's, like, 70?
Well, what books are like this? There's so many fucking of them that are like this. That they're like, we'll just be together and everything will be fine.
Well, that's it, right? And like, no, it's not. Like, and as much, and it's usually the guy that's the immortal one. I know you just read a book where it's the opposite, but like,
not anymore though.
Yeah,
they're both they both ended up being, so it's not the same. Like, if they both become immortal, it's fine.
But what I mean is, like, usually the dude is the immortal one and the girl is, and she's like, how are you still gonna love me when I'm all full of wrinkles? And
think Bella in Twilight. And she literally had full-on panics about this in high school. She's like, I'm already getting a wrinkle.
Like,
See it?
I have one gray hair. But yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, in this instance, he is going to live for 1,000 years. What is going to happen when she starts to age in like 50? Well, not even starts to age in 50 years. Like, she's only really got 50 to 60 years to live.
Well, and like, I'm sure in their town that she lives in, they're living, like, they don't live to 80, 90 like we do.
Definitely not. So, like, I guess my issue is that they never, ever, this is never brought up in these types of books. Like, it's just not addressed as much, realistically, because the dude is just like, oh, well, of course I'll still love you. I don't care what you look like. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Because if you didn't care what she looked like, she wouldn't be 19 years old with silky brown hair with like a curvy figure. You know what I mean? Like, you obviously care a little bit about what she looks like because all these other beautiful fae are throwing themselves at you, and you can't see anybody but her. So, like, she's obviously decently good looking. So, like, I don't know. I just feel like no one talks about this enough.
No, but I can't think, and I don't know, I could be wrong. I can't think of any books where the man is immortal and he stays with the girl while she grows old. But I can think of a book where the woman was immortal and she stays with the guy, which is the Infernal Devices trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But I can't think of, like, where we actually get... This is a bit of a spoiler for a series that we've already done, but A Discovery of Witches, I assume it happens, but we don't actually get it.
Well, but they age together.
Oh, yeah, she ages him through magic, is it? Dumb.
So, like, they look the same age. Like, they both look like they're getting old.
So that's different. Yeah, because with the Infernal Devices, they did the and sorry, maybe there should be a spoiler here, so don't listen if you are planning on reading this series that is, like, it's a pretty old series, but skip ahead a few seconds. But she is as young as the day she met them, and he is an old man dying of old age.
Yeah. She's like 18.
I won't say who he is. Who he is, and then that's less of a spoiler. But anyway.
Anyway, it just bothers me a little bit. So I guess the next morning after, like, when Tamlin's out that night and she has this realization that, oh, she's falling in love with him, She wakes up and she looks outside and sees that all the staff are setting up maypoles and fiddles and all kinds of stuff. And she's told it's the summer solstice, so they're all celebrating the summer solstice.
Yay.
Tamlin gets home. She's really relieved, so she's going to find him. And Alice is like, "Nope, you're gonna change first." And after when she changes, they come downstairs, or she comes downstairs, and Tamlin and Lucien say to her that she looks positively fey, and that actually
Ooh.
makes her really giddy and secretly sort of happy. Like she almost wants to look fey, which is a very big
Yeah.
shift in her opinions, right? First, she hated everything about them, and now she's like, "Oh, I kind of look like them," right?
Yeah.
So she and Tamlin sort of go for a walk, and she gets turned on just by touching his arm. And I'm like, bitch, you gotta get some. She's getting turned on with very minor things. It's she is overdue.
Yeah. I feel like there's so much sexual tension between them that you could use it as lube.
Yeah.
They're both very far
But can I
gone.
also say how unrealistic, when you read books and the guy puts his fingers, he searches her out and finds her immediately wet. Come on, dude. I find this
Yeah.
anyway. It's a bit off topic, but still. So the festival gets going, and Feyre says it's similar to the human festivals, the human counterparts that that they have on the other side of the border. There's food, there's music. It's just a light-hearted sort of celebration. She even has some fairy wine, even though Lucien warned her not to, and it.
Which is
Right?
fair. I do the same. You can't tell me not to drink some
And
fairy
apparently
wine.
it makes her really high and giddy and happy, and she calls Tamlin her High Lord, which is
Ugh.
a bit
Wretch.
possessive of her though. It's not all one-sided, it's not all him.
No.
It's a bit of her too.
No. Yep.
Um she hears the music, she just wants to dance to it, and at this point she's
She,
loaded on the fairy wine.
she's
She's
a
a
drunk
drunk, yeah.
bitch.
Yeah.
This is she wants to go
Yeah,
dancing.
and fair point, let's go dancing. You know what I mean?
100%. This was
Yeah.
us. I'm not judging her. We
We
did the
did do
same
the same thing
thing.
a lot. Um so yeah, and I guess she's dancing, doing her thing on the dance floor, and she notices that Tamlin is playing the fiddle with the band. And
Ooh,
I
how
know,
hot.
playing that old fiddle. And she thought he looked real handsome playing that fiddle. I guess it's also
Fair.
he's doing stuff with his fingers that could be impressive, right?
True. It's also that forearm. When you see a man's forearm and it is big,
Okay.
big fan.
Um
Yep. When they roll up
yeah,
their shirts, their long
it's
sleeve
true.
shirts, and then they're done for the day and they roll them up and then they start playing the fiddle.
Playing that good old fiddle
Like men do after work.
after a long day out in those fields.
Doing the hard work of ruling.
Anyway, so I guess Lucien comes over and apologizes to Tamlin. It's sorry, Tam, she drank the fairy wine even though I told her not to. And Tamlin's sort of that's okay. You can leave her, I'll watch her. And this part is the cringiest part in this whole book for me, because after Lucian's oh, thank God, and he leaves, Tamlin tells Feyre, he's dance, Feyre, dance. And I feel like it's supposed to be sexy, or him, I don't know, but to me it's just gross.
Yeah.
It's possessive and him trying to tell her what to do. Anyway.
Yeah.
Blech.
But I think this is a second reading sans
Yeah.
rose-colored glasses. I know it's not a second reading
No.
for either of us. We've
Yeah.
read it multiple times. But I do think that like
Yeah.
it's amazing how much you can ignore in this book in the first reading.
It's 100%. I didn't think of any of these things the first time I read them. I was completely like, I did have the rose-colored glasses on. I was like, oh my god, she's so happy. And she is, and I'm happy for her. But
Yeah. I just didn't care about anybody enough. I was like, why? Why? But yeah.
Anyway, so I guess he eventually stops playing the fiddle and gets up and dances with her. And then he leads her away to watch the Will-o'-the-Wisps. If anybody has ever seen the movie Brave, you know what a Will-o'-the-Wisp is. They're like dancing and singing in the meadow. They're these little like globes, little orbs of light, like dancing around a meadow, and it's very romantic. And they dance in the meadow by themselves, and you know, it's just when dawn approaches, they have a nice kiss. First time they actually like kiss on the lips, yeah, and they're like roving their hands over each other, like exploring each other. And like,
Frisky.
yeah, I almost wish they had sex here because it's a very nice moment. There's nothing tarnishing it. It's just like, I don't know, I just feel like it would have been the right time.
Yeah.
They don't.
I feel like if it was new adult, they would have. Like if it wasn't being marketed as YA, they might have actually had sex here.
But I mean, they have, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but
I know, and she already has had sex with
Isaac Hale.
What's his face? Yeah. But like, I don't know, maybe you're only allowed so many sex scenes in YA. I don't actually know.
I don't know if there's a rule.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after they make out for a little bit and like touch each other, they go sit on a hill and watch as the sun comes up. They say apparently the summer solstice has one of the best sunrises. So, but yeah, they're up until after the sun comes up, and then they go to sleep. Wake up a few hours later for breakfast with Tamlin, or breakfast with Lucien. Sorry. And she sort of says like she doesn't regret anything happening with Tamlin, even though she was like a little bit drunk. Which is maybe
that's probably why they
didn't have sex. But like, yeah, so like they flirt really hardcore at breakfast, and it makes Lucien like feel really awkward. Feyre like discusses in her mind in detail how much she wants him to take her on the table, because she is really turned on.
Yep.
And I think we've discussed in other SJM books that
we have
that Faye can actually like smell when you're aroused. So like,
I hate it so much.
I can only imagine like Tamlin's probably like into it. He's like, yes, like,
yes, queen.
Yeah, like she wants my like hot dog.
Big D. Hot dog.
I was trying to not just say big dick, but you just went there. Anyway, but like also imagine poor Lucien sitting there being like, oh my god, she really just like she's just horny right now, and like just being so awkward. Anyway, then I guess Lucien has to like kill the mood, and says that he has news from the Winter Court. Apparently the Blight took out 24 of their younglings, aka their children. So 24 children have died from the Blight. Apparently it burned through their magic and broke apart their minds, and no one from the Winter Court could do a darn thing.
It's insane.
Yeah. So this is a really sad moment, and it sort of really cuts through the horniness, like like she was all hot and heavy and was prepared to let him take her on that table, and then this sort of like just it's like splash water over everything. Apparently he also said like the other courts are really being hit hard by the Blight, and they mention that younglings are really rare. So like their deaths are unimaginable and really, really painful. Like couples could wait like over 100 years trying to have a baby and unable to do so. So like
Yeah.
the fact that 24 children were killed is is very sad.
Yeah, I think Alice mentioned it before that like it's very rare for Fae in general having kids.
Yeah. And like that's technically like that could be a whole generation. Like imagine like
Mm-hmm.
that could literally be an entire generation of the Winter Court just gone.
Yeah, 100%.
Um so like it's already like gone down into this somber mood, and all of a sudden Tamlin jumps from his chair and we don't really know why, and he makes Feyre hide behind the curtain, like, or not behind the curtain, but makes her hide by a curtain in the dining room, and puts Lucien in front of her and glamours Feyre to become a part of Lucien, sort of
Mm-hmm.
like hiding her scent. And then Tamlin sort of sat back in his chair, pretending nothing was wrong, but Feyre could like really tell that he was scared, and that whoever is showing up would want to hurt her if they knew she was there. So she sort of knew to stay
Mm-hmm.
quiet. She hears footsteps, and all of a sudden she sees a man, and she recognizes him as that man that saved her from the 3 males on Calamni, that saw that like sultry deep voice with the dark hair and violet eyes, that guy. And his name is Rhysand. And again, he's the most handsome. He's amazingly handsome. She sees it immediately. Um, he talks to Tamlin and Lucien and immediately like antagonizes them and teases them.
Mm-hmm.
And he says like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in 49 years." And it's like, weren't you at their house? How did you not see them?
Yeah, especially since like Feyre walked away from him
What?
and 5 seconds later Lucien like
Yes.
tackled her through her shoulder. You'd think that he would have like, I don't know, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't watch where she went and didn't.
Yeah. I don't know. It was weird. So
Mm-hmm.
he then asks if they liked his present, aka the head of that fairy that Feyre found in the garden. And
Yeah.
he says he says, I'm surprised that he said he was surprised that Tamlin had been holed up in his estate and hasn't tried to save himself or his lands. And Tamlin sort of just says like there's nothing to be done, sort of like
Mm-hmm.
accepting his fate. And they have a little back and forth of like just snarking at each other. And Tamlin calls Rhysand Amarantha's whore. So
Yeah.
we got Amarantha's name before, like we heard about it, I think during week 1 maybe. So that name is not familiar. I know Feyre thought it was maybe the name of a high fae, of one of the like the high lady or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we know Rhysand's at least sleeping with her. But he admits through the back and forth that he is the High Lord of the Night Court. I guess he's like, I don't know how he goes about it. He keeps antagonizing Tamlin and Lucien, and sort of mentions that he'll make sure Amarantha is prepared for Tamlin's arrival. And, he sort of lets that go, and he's getting ready to leave. And he notices all of a sudden the glamour on Feyre and tears it away. They try and lie and say that she's Lucien's betrothed, like Lucien's fiance, which is like, come on, dude, you're betrothed to a human. Like, let's not be so, like, he's not going to believe that.
Yeah.
And then Rhysand, we call him Rhys,
Mm-hmm.
grabs her mind And she says it felt like talons scraping across her mind, and she knew with one swipe she would cease to exist. So I don't know. I find that it's like a really interesting way to describe his power.
Yeah. Also terrifying.
Also terrifying, yeah. Um, he reads her mind and sees all the sexy thoughts she's been having about Tamlin, and like sort of says, "Oh, Tamlin, like she's got the hots for you." And
Even though she is Lucien's
yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah, and essentially,
Betrothed.
yeah, betrothed, and essentially says that Amarantha is going to enjoy breaking her apart and having Tamlin watch. And yeah, this causes Tamlin to like freak the fuck out. And he begs Rhysand not to tell Amarantha about her, but Rhys makes him and Lucien kneel so low their heads touch the floor. He's like, well, if you don't want me to tell, this is what you have to do. So like he's being a bit of a dick.
100%.
Maybe even a little bit more. Yeah. He also then, after like he made them bow, and like Feyre's like, her mind is blown that they would bow that low for her. Like she knows how proud Tamlin is and how he doesn't bow for anybody, but he bowed like to keep her safe.
Mm-hmm.
So Rhys doesn't guarantee that he won't tell, but he does ask Feyre for her name, and she knows she can't give him her real name. So she gives him the name of a girl from her village. Like, first name pops into her head, Claire Better. He leaves. Like, he's, I guess, placated by that. And tells Tamlin that he would see him under the mountain. Feyre was like so terrified during this encounter that after he left, she runs to her room and stays there all night long. She doesn't go down to dinner, but she hears Tamlin like raging and destroying the dining room. Like, dude,
Ugh.
tantrum, come on.
Such tantrum.
Later on, I guess he comes to her room and tells her he's sending her home, like across the wall back to her dad, and that he's taking on her life debt so she can be free. So like all this crap about how like there was nothing in the treaty that could free her, bullshit, essentially.
Yeah, right.
And she's actually like heartbroken by this. Like she says she doesn't want to go, but he says like he doesn't want her to get hurt. And she is initially insistent on staying, but he says there are worse things coming, like the adder, and he can't bear to think of her in their hands. And it just like, I wish she had been more stubborn in this moment. Like
don't we all?
Like she has been a driving force of her own will, apart from the fact that he like kidnapped her, but like she has not done anything that she did not want to do this entire book. She's super stubborn, super like she's got like self-preservation. She's I don't know, she's really been all about like doing what she wants to do this entire book, and all of a sudden he's like, oh no, you have to leave, like I need to keep you safe. And she's like, okay. You know what I mean? I just like
yeah,
it bothers me.
Yeah, it does seem it seems out of character.
It does.
And I know it's plot driven, but I also, like I said when we first started reading this is almost around the spot where I stopped reading because I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why is this what's happening? This wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess she like sort of accepts that this is what he wants, and they kiss, and Feyre pushes Tamlin onto the bed. Woo. So like this is the moment, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, this is where they have sex. And this is sort of why I wish they had also had sex earlier. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like they're getting this one, like, they're really getting this last night together, and
Mhm.
then she's gone, and I just feel like it tarnishes the sex a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, so she pushes Tamlin on the bed, they make out, touch each other some more. He flips, like, them around so that he's on top of her, which, like, of course he does.
Mhm.
He shreds through her panties with a claw, which I actually think is kind of hot. And
Depending on where he's shredding.
well, like, obviously don't hurt, like, don't shred my vagina, but like if you're just shredding material, it's fine.
Yeah.
And obviously then he starts, like, using his hand on her, and he goes to stop then. Like, I guess he got out of control, and she was like, "Don't stop. Why are you stopping?" And he's like, "If we keep going, I won't be able to stop at all." And she's like, "Yes, that's why she said to keep going." Like, I don't understand his reasoning at all.
I know, but I think this is another one of those little flags that SJM put in because, like, if you keep going and she decides that she wants to stop, you can't just say, "Oh, I can't stop because I'm a beast." Like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
that's not an excuse. So I do think it's just a moment to be in this reread to be like, huh, why did you even say that?
Yeah. I never even thought of that.
Yeah. It's just
Um but yeah, so, like, she's like, "Yeah, duh." So, like, to prove her point, she takes her nightgown off and is like, "Dude, I'm naked, like, come on."
yeah.
Then she goes for it again, and this is, like, I don't know if I would have the courage to do this. Like, the first time you're having sex with someone, she opens her legs.
I know.
Can you
I'm
imagine?
assuming lights are on.
They have candles, they don't have lights. It's
True.
all
Yeah.
candlelight, right? Isn't it?
This is
It's very
yeah.
daring. Like, I would never have the guts to do that if I was 19 with, like, a 300-year-old man, and, like, first time having sex, first time him, like, touching my vagina, and I'm like, "Woo! We're open for business." It's
Yeah.
very
It's also like this is a YA book. It seems wild.
maybe.
Also, all for female empowerment, and I hope that, like, if there are YAs reading this, they feel
Yeah.
empowered by this.
Yeah.
But it also seems wild that it's a YA book.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like, I'm here for it. Like,
Yeah.
you do you. If she is that confident to, like, just lay it all out there,
Yeah.
and you gotta think there's natural bush too.
Although the first day she was there, they plucked her,
Oh,
didn't
that's
they? Oh,
true.
was that this book?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
was.
Yes.
So, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Maybe they took care of all that.
Maybe they take care of it
I like
often. I
it.
don't know.
Anyway,
Or maybe it's the
could
style.
be.
Who knows?
So,
We go through phases.
got your phases in life. So, I guess she opens her legs for him, which makes him growl. It's like there's the animal side coming out. And then he goes to town on her. He goes wild. He, like, very obviously he eats her out until she comes the first time. Then he sheaths himself inside her, and surprise, surprise, she comes again. Just from penetration.
Of
Yeah,
course.
that's how it happens, folks. Um, and then they're done. And he goes to leave and essentially says, like, "You're leaving at dawn, you should probably get some sleep." And she's like, "No, stay, please." And they cuddle until she falls asleep, and she hears him tell her that he loves her, thorns and all. I guess earlier it wasn't really, like, mentionable, but she mentioned that, she's got thorns. She thinks she's
Mhm.
got
Yeah.
thorns. And, like, she does. She's a bit stubborn and prickly, and, like, you don't have to be calm and delicate and, like, reserved all the time. Like, you can have emotions.
Yes.
Like, that is okay. Anyway, so the next day she's getting ready to leave, and Lucien tells her he thought she was smarter than that. Like, smarter than this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just think he's an idiot. Like, Lucien saying, "Oh, I thought you were smarter than this." Like, you have no idea what she's thinking in her head. Don't, like,
No.
it just bothers.
But we also thought that she was smarter than this too. We wouldn't say it to her,
No.
but is that any better?
Yes. You can
Okay.
think something, you just don't say it to their face. I'm sure she's upset.
Yeah, for sure. And also, she knows that when Tamlin doesn't get his way, he's a piece of shit. So what's she supposed to do?
Yeah. Anyway, he then, like, begs Tamlin to let her stay for a few more days, but Tamlin's like, no, not even. She decided that she was going to leave so that Tamlin wouldn't have to, like, defend and protect her. Like, that was her reasoning in her head for leaving. She was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want him worried about me. I don't want him to have to protect me, so I'm going to leave so he doesn't have to think about it. She gets in the carriage, and Tamlin tells her again that he loves her. And she wants to say it back, but she doesn't, because he's an immortal, and she doesn't think last night meant as much to him as it did for her, and she doesn't want to burden him.
Which is like exactly what you said earlier of like she realizes that she is mortal and she can't really like hold up as much space in his life as he would in hers.
Yeah.
So like I do appreciate that she acknowledges this.
Yeah. But it's also like self-preservation too, I feel like, because she's like,
oh yeah,
if she doesn't say it out loud, then
it's not real.
Yeah, and she can move on with her life.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the carriage leaves, and she just didn't say anything.
She gone.
She gone. And Tamlin puts her in a magic sleep for the whole trip. So again,
of course,
what he did on the way, he's also doing on the way back, and it's still non-consensual.
Yeah.
But when she arrives back at the human realm at her family's house, Tamlin has taken care of her family like he said he would, and set them up in this huge estate. Like, they were super rich again. Like, even more rich than they were before.
Yeah.
The story that they had been told, or the glamour that her family believed, was that Feyre had gone to care for an ailing great aunt named Ripley, and she had died, and that's why Feyre was back, and she had Great Aunt Ripley's fortune.
Mm-hmm.
Nesta isn't buying it, though. Like, Nesta seems suspicious.
Yeah.
Then they believe that, like, Feyre sort of asks, like, well, what happened? Why are we all in this crazy house? And Elaine sort of explains that their wealth was returned because their ships had been found. So, like, the ships have been lost for, like, what, 8 years?
At least.
At least, maybe 10. And all of a sudden, they've been found. Where have they been for the past 10 years? Nobody knows. As well, so, like, on top of the fact that their ships had been found, we know their ships were not found. We know just Tamlin gave them money.
Yeah.
A wealthy stranger asked, I guess, their father to invest money for him, which earned him a ton of gold.
Yeah.
So I guess Feyre settles into the house, like, she's got a room in the house and everything like that. And she already starts to regret her decision to leave. Thinking back then to the Suriel, that creature she captured, its only command to her was stay with the High Lord. And she did not stay with the High Lord.
Nope.
However, her father sees her. Like, I guess he was up in his office, and then he comes down and sees her, and he's like, we're gonna have a ball!
Yay!
And that is where we end off with Feyre getting a ball in her honor to celebrate her return, but being uneasy as fuck that she did not listen to the Suriel.
Yeah. Always listen to the Suriel.
Always. Like, always listen to the Suriel. It's like a number one rule.
It's true.
Anyway. So that was probably, like, it wasn't very spicy, but that was probably going to be our spiciest week, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. I think so.
The second book of this series, I think we've said before, gets a lot more spicy.
Yes.
But
a lot.
But it's going to ramp up from here in terms of
the storyline, for sure.
Yes. Like, so yeah. I will say that this is sort of where I was confused. Like, and I think you said it too. Like, this is where you stop reading because you stop caring. I think.
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck is going on? What is this story?
I remember when I first started reading this book, I was surprised at how much book was left after this.
Yeah.
This sort of feels like, okay, this is the ending. This is sort of the conclusion for this story, and okay, there's going to be another book, so like we sort of know what's going to happen. But there's like a good, like, well, obviously we have 2 weeks left of book, so that's like at least like 175 pages left of book.
Yeah.
So,
and I would argue some of the best parts of the book are left.
Yeah.
Well, maybe all of them.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that to the interpretation of the reader.
Yeah. But yeah, so stick around because we got a lot left.
We do.
A lot of plot.
Very true. But that wraps it up for this week. If you do want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in any of our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co-Read.
Don't forget those tattoo pictures.
Yes, definitely.
Next week, we're going to be reading chapters 29 to 38 of ACOTAR. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our little chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.